The hospital corridor echoed with Amara's screams as her mother-in-law, Mama Chaik, grabbed the newborn baby from the nurse's arms and spat on the floor. A girl. Another useless girl. Mama Chaik's voice cut through the labor ward like a machete. My son has wasted 5 years of his life on this barren woman, and this is what she gives us. Amara lay on the blood-stained hospital bed in Lagos University Teaching Hospital, her body still trembling from 18 hours of labor. Sweat poured down her face as she reached weakly toward her crying baby. But Mama Chaik stepped back, clutching the infant with disgust written across her face. "Please," Amara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please give me my baby." Chaik, her husband, stood in the corner of the delivery room, his face turned away. He said nothing. He did absolutely nothing as his mother continued her assault. "This marriage is finished," Mama Chaik announced, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "We paid good money for bride price, expecting sons to carry our family name. Instead, you have cursed us with girls. First that other one, now this." Amara's 3-year-old daughter, Zainab, stood outside the delivery room with Chaik's sister, Ngozi. Through her feverish haze, Amara could hear little Zainab crying for her mother. The nurse tried to intervene. "Madam, please, the woman just gave birth. She needs rest and—" "Shut your mouth," Ngozi snapped at the nurse. "This is family business. You know nothing about our culture and traditions." Mama Chaik thrust the baby toward the nurse. "Take this child. We don't want her. And this woman," she pointed at Amara with pure venom in her eyes, "she is no longer part of this family. Chaik, call your uncle. Tell him to bring her things from the house and dump them here at the hospital." "Mama, please," Amara begged, trying to sit up but collapsing back onto the bed. Blood seeped through her hospital gown. "I just need time to rest. I can try again. Please don't take my babies away." But Mama Chaik had already made up her mind. She turned to Chaik, who finally looked at his wife. For a brief moment, Amara saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret. Shame. But whatever it was disappeared quickly as his mother's harsh voice commanded him. "Chaik, are you a man or a mouse? Get this woman's belongings. She is going back to her village where she belongs. We will find you a proper wife, one who can give us sons." What happened next would haunt Amara forever. Her own husband, the man she had loved and trusted for 5 years, walked out of that delivery room without a single word. He didn't look back. He didn't check if she was okay. He simply obeyed his mother like an obedient child. The hospital security was called. Within 2 hours, as Amara lay weak and bleeding, her 2 small bags of belongings were thrown on the floor beside her bed. She had no money. Her phone had been taken by Ngozi weeks ago, supposedly for repair but never returned. She had no way to call her own family in Enugu, over 400 kilometers away. As night fell over Lagos, Amara found herself discharged from the hospital by Chaik's family, who had paid the bill and demanded she leave immediately. A sympathetic nurse named Sister Grace helped her to the hospital gate with her newborn daughter and little Zainab clinging to her wrapper. "Where will you go?" Sister Grace asked, tears in her own eyes. Amara looked down at her 2 daughters. The newborn, unnamed and unwanted by her father's family. Zainab, exhausted and confused, asking when Daddy was coming. And she had nowhere to go, no money, and a body that had just been through the trauma of childbirth. "I don't know," Amara whispered into the humid Lagos night. "I really don't know." But what Amara didn't know, what none of the Okafor family could have imagined, was that this cruel night was not her ending. It was only the beginning. Before we continue with what happens next, I want to ask you something. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if this story has already gripped you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because what happens to Amara next will shock you. Trust me, You don't want to miss a single moment of this journey. Now, how did Amara end up in this nightmare? Let me take you back to where it all began. 5 years earlier, Amara had been a different woman entirely. She was 23 years old, working as a junior accountant at a telecommunications company in Lagos, and her future seemed bright with possibility. She had moved to Lagos from Enugu after completing her degree in accounting, determined to make something of herself in the big city. Her parents, simple traders in Enugu, had sacrificed everything to give her an education. Her father sold his small plot of land to pay her university fees. Her mother woke up at 4 every morning to prepare akara and bread for sale so Amara could focus on her studies. "Make us proud, my daughter," her father had said the day she left for Lagos. "You are the first person in our family to finish university. Show them what the Okonkwo family is made of." Amara had every intention of doing exactly that. She rented a small room in Yoba with 2 other girls and threw herself into her work. She was smart, dedicated, and determined to climb the corporate ladder. That was when she met Chike Okafor. He walked into her office one afternoon in his perfectly tailored suit, his expensive watch glinting under the fluorescent lights. He was the son of Chief Okafor, a wealthy businessman with interests in real estate and importation. Chike himself managed one of his father's companies, and he had come to discuss a business partnership with Amara's employer. "You have beautiful eyes," were the first words Chike ever said to Amara when he caught her reviewing some documents in the reception area. She had blushed and looked away, but Chike was persistent. He asked for her number. He sent her flowers. He took her to the finest restaurants in Victoria Island and Lekki. He made her feel like a princess. "My family will love you," he promised after 6 months of dating. "You're educated, beautiful, and respectful. Everything a man could want." But Amara should have paid attention to the warning signs. She should have noticed how Chike never made important decisions without calling his mother first. She should have questioned why, at 30 years old, he still lived in his parents' mansion in Ikoyi. She should have been concerned when he casually mentioned that his mother had rejected his last 3 girlfriends for various reasons. But she was in love. Or at least, she thought she was. The traditional marriage introduction was grand. Chief Okafor's family came to Enugu with a convoy of expensive cars. They brought bags of rice, yams, drinks, and a bride price that made Amara's parents weep with joy. It was more money than her father had seen in his entire life. "You have done well, Amara," her mother whispered during the ceremony. "This family will take care of you. You will never suffer again." If only she had known. The first few months of marriage were beautiful. Chike rented them a nice 3-bedroom apartment in Ikeja. He gave her money to furnish it. He was attentive and loving. Amara quit her job at his insistence. "My wife doesn't need to work," he had said proudly. "I will take care of everything." Then she got pregnant with Zainab. When the doctor confirmed it was a girl, Amara noticed the first crack in her perfect marriage. Chike said nothing, but his mother's reaction was immediate and terrifying. "A girl," Mama Chike had said when they went to inform the family. "Well, the next one will be a boy. It must be a boy." After Zainab was born, the treatment began to change. Mama Chike visited constantly, always with criticism. The house was not clean enough. Amara was not cooking proper Igbo food. The baby cried too much. Amara was spoiling her. "You know, Chike's cousin just gave birth to twin boys," Mama Chike said one afternoon, bouncing Zainab on her lap with visible disappointment. "Twin boys. That is what we call a blessing. That woman knows her worth." Chike started coming home late. Some nights, he didn't come home at all. When Amara asked questions, he became angry. "Are you accusing me of something? After everything my family has done for you? Your poor family from Enugu who couldn't even afford a proper wedding." The words cut deep because they were designed to. Slowly, systematically, Chike and his family began to remind Amara of her place. She was the girl from the poor family who had been elevated by their generosity. She should be grateful. She should be quiet. She should give them sons. When Zainab turned 2, Amara got pregnant again. She prayed every single day for a boy. She went to church. She fasted. She even visited a prayer house in Oja where a prophet assured her she would have a male child. "This is your redemption," Mama Chaik said when she learned of the pregnancy. "Give us a boy, and all will be forgiven." But God, or fate, or destiny had other plans. At the 20-week scan, the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, it's a healthy baby girl." Amara's heart sank. She begged the doctor to check again. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe the machine was wrong. But there was no mistake. She didn't tell Chaik immediately. She kept the secret for weeks, hoping that somehow the situation would resolve itself. But eventually, Mama Chaik demanded to know the baby's gender. "Another girl," Amara had whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the accusations. Amara's family must have a curse. She must have done something to anger the ancestors. Perhaps she was being punished for some secret sin. The next 5 months were hell. Chaik barely spoke to her. His family made it clear she was on probation. And on that terrible night in the hospital, when she delivered her second daughter, they made good on their unspoken threat. They threw her away like garbage. Now, standing at the hospital gate with 2 baby girls and nowhere to go, Amara felt the full weight of her situation. She had no job, no money. Her phone was gone. And it was past 9 o'clock at night in Lagos, one of the most dangerous cities in the world for a woman alone. But Sister Grace, the nurse who had helped her, wasn't finished being an angel. "Come with me," Sister Grace said quietly. "Just for tonight. You and your girls can sleep at my place. Tomorrow, we will figure out what to do." As they walked toward the hospital parking lot, Amara clutching her babies and her small bags, she made herself a promise. This was not the end of her story. Somehow, someway, she would rise again. She had no idea how right she was. If you're feeling Amara's pain right now, show this video some love by hitting that like button. And here's my question for you. What would you do if your in-laws treated you this way? Would you fight back or walk away? Drop your answers in the comments. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Sister Grace's apartment was a small 1-bedroom flat in Mushin, one of Lagos's densely populated neighborhoods. It was humble but clean, and to Amara that night, it felt like a palace. "You can sleep on the mattress with the girls," Sister Grace said, pulling out a thin foam mattress from under her bed. "I'll manage with the couch." "Thank you," Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Sister Grace waved her hand dismissively. "My sister, we women must help each other. Besides, I've seen too many stories like yours in that hospital. Men and their wicked families throwing away women like used tissue paper." She shook her head in disgust. "Rest now. Tomorrow, we'll contact your family." But when morning came, the situation was even worse than Amara had imagined. Sister Grace had a small Nokia phone, and Amara managed to remember her father's number. Her hands shook as she dialed. The phone rang 4 times before her younger brother, Obinna, answered. "Hello. Obinna, it's me. Amara." There was a pause. "Amara? Where are you calling from?" "Chaik has been calling Papa's phone since yesterday saying you ran away from the hospital and stole money from him." Amara's blood ran cold. "What? That's a lie. Obinna, they threw me out. They took everything from me because I had another girl. Papa wants to talk to you." Her father's voice came on the line, heavy with disappointment. "Amara, what have you done?" "Papa, I haven't done anything wrong. I just gave birth. Chaik's family threw me out of the hospital because the baby is a girl. They..." "Enough." Her father's voice was sharp. "Chief Okafor himself called me. He said you have been a disrespectful wife. That you have been going out at night to clubs. That you stole 50,000 naira from Chaik's wallet and ran away from the hospital." "Papa, that's not true. None of it is true." They want their bride price back, Amara. All of it. 1 million naira. Her father's voice cracked. Where will I get that kind of money? You have disgraced this family. Your mother is in bed crying. The whole village is talking about us. Papa, please listen to me. Come back to Enugu if you want, but you cannot stay in my house until this matter is resolved. I will not harbor a runaway wife. The shame is too much. The line went dead. Amara collapsed onto the mattress, her body shaking with sobs. Her own father had believed Chike's lies over her truth. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. She was truly alone in the world with 2 babies depending on her. Sister Grace held her as she cried. It's okay, it's okay. We will find a way. But finding a way seemed impossible. For the next 3 weeks, Amara stayed in Sister Grace's tiny apartment. She recovered from childbirth slowly, her body weak from stress and inadequate nutrition. Sister Grace brought food from the hospital canteen, sharing her meager meals with Amara and the girls. Amara named her newborn daughter Chisholm, which means, God accompanies me. If God was truly with her, she needed him now more than ever. Every day, she sent text messages from Sister Grace's phone to Chike, begging him to listen to her side of the story, asking for at least some money for the children. He never responded. Instead, his family continued to spread lies about her throughout their social circles. One afternoon, Sister Grace came home with unexpected news. There's a woman at the hospital, she said. Her name is Mrs. Beatrice Nwankwo. She's a businesswoman, very wealthy. She comes to the hospital to do charity work sometimes, helping women who can't afford their medical bills. Amara looked up from where she sat feeding Chisholm. Why are you telling me this? Because I told her about you. And she wants to meet you. 2 days later, Amara found herself sitting across from Mrs. Beatrice Nwankwo in a hospital consultation room. Mrs. Nwankwo was in her late 50s, elegantly dressed in Ankara fabric and gold jewelry. But her eyes were kind, and when she looked at Amara, there was no judgment, only understanding. Tell me your story, Mrs. Nwankwo said simply. Everything. And Amara did. She poured out everything. The marriage, the abuse, the rejection, the lies. She held nothing back because she had nothing left to lose. When she finished, Mrs. Nwankwo was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. 25 years ago, I was you, she said softly. Different circumstances, but the same pain. My husband's family rejected me because I couldn't have children at all. They threw me out with nothing. I wanted to die. Amara stared at her in shock. But I didn't die, Mrs. Nwankwo continued. Instead, I picked myself up. I started selling vegetables in the market. Then I learned how to import goods from China. Now I own 3 supermarkets across Lagos and Abuja. I never had the children they wanted, but I adopted 5 orphans and gave them the best life possible. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Amara, your story doesn't end here unless you let it. I'm going to make you an offer. Come and work for me. I'll give you a place to stay, a small salary, and training in my business. In exchange, you work hard and you rebuild your life. Are you interested? Amara couldn't believe what she was hearing. Madam, yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Mrs. Nwankwo smiled. Good. But I must warn you. It won't be easy. You'll start from the bottom, working in my warehouse, packing goods, doing inventory. The hours are long, and the work is hard. But if you're dedicated, if you're willing to learn, I'll teach you everything I know about business. I'll do anything, Amara said, tears of relief streaming down her face. I just want to give my daughters a good life. Then we start Monday. Sister Grace has already agreed to watch your girls during work hours for a small fee. I'll provide accommodation for all of you in the boys' quarters behind my house in Surulere. As Amara left that meeting, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. She didn't know it yet, But this meeting with Mrs. Nwankwo was the first step on a journey that would transform her from a rejected wife into something far more powerful. The universe was about to show Chaik and his family what a terrible mistake they had made. The first 6 months working for Mrs. Nwankwo were the hardest of Amara's life. She woke up at 4:30 every morning, fed and prepared her daughters, dropped them with Sister Grace, who had moved into a room near Mrs. Nwankwo's compound, and then worked from 6 in the morning until 8 at night. Her hands, once soft from her days as an accountant, became rough and calloused from lifting boxes and organizing inventory. Her back ached from bending over shipment crates. Some nights she was so exhausted she fell asleep while feeding Chisholm. But Amara never complained. Not once. Mrs. Nwankwo watched her carefully during those first months. She saw how Amara arrived early and left late. She noticed how Amara asked questions, taking mental notes about everything from supply chain management to customer relations. She observed how Amara treated the other workers with respect, even when some of them looked down on her for being a warehouse worker with 2 children and no husband. One day, 3 months into her employment, Mrs. Nwankwo called Amara into her office. "You have an accounting degree," Mrs. Nwankwo said. It wasn't a question. Amara nodded, surprised. "Yes, Ma. I worked as an accountant before I got married." "Why didn't you tell me this?" "Because you gave me a job when I had nothing, Ma. I didn't want you to think I was ungrateful for warehouse work." Mrs. Nwankwo smiled, a rare genuine smile. "Starting Monday, you'll work in the accounts department. I need someone I can trust to help me organize my financial records. You'll also continue learning about the business operations. Consider this your promotion." Amara felt tears well up in her eyes. "Thank you, Ma. I won't disappoint you." "I know you won't. And Amara, stop calling me Ma. Call me Auntie Beatrice." The promotion changed everything. Working in accounts, Amara discovered that Auntie Beatrice's businesses were even larger than she had imagined. The 3 supermarkets were just the visible part. Auntie Beatrice also owned import licenses, had partnerships with manufacturers in China and Dubai, and was involved in real estate investments. "Business is like chess," Auntie Beatrice told her one evening as they reviewed quarterly reports. "You must always think 3 moves ahead. You must know when to attack and when to defend. And most importantly, you must never let emotions cloud your judgment." Amara absorbed everything like a sponge. She stayed late studying financial statements. She accompanied Auntie Beatrice to meetings with suppliers and learned how to negotiate. She watched how the older woman commanded respect in rooms full of men who initially dismissed her. 1 year passed. Then 2 years. Amara's daughters grew. Zainab started primary school, bright and curious. Chisholm learned to walk and talk, her laughter filling the small boys' quarters that had become their home. They had little, but they had each other, and they had dignity. During this time, Amara heard nothing from Chaik or his family. She had stopped trying to contact them. Her father had eventually called once, gruffly asking if she was still alive. She told him she was fine and working. He didn't ask about his granddaughters. The pain of that rejection never fully healed, but Amara learned to live with it. What she didn't know was that Chaik's life had taken a dark turn. The construction company his father had given him to manage had collapsed due to his poor decisions and lack of dedication. Chief Okafor, furious at his son's incompetence, had cut off his allowance. Chaik had remarried quickly after Amara left, choosing a woman his mother approved of, a woman who promised she came from a family of only male children. But that marriage lasted only 8 months before his new wife left him, tired of his drinking and verbal abuse. Mama Chaik blamed the new wife, of course, never her precious son. Meanwhile, in Suralaya, Amara was becoming someone new. By her 3rd year with Auntie Beatrice, she was managing the entire accounting department and had begun developing her own business ideas. She had saved every naira she could, living frugally and planning for the future. "I want to start something of my own," she told Auntie Beatrice one evening. "Something small. Maybe importing children's clothing and educational materials. I've been researching the market, and I think there's an opportunity." Auntie Beatrice looked at her with pride. "Show me your business plan." Amara pulled out a folder she had been working on for months. Detailed financial projections, supplier contacts, market analysis, everything presented professionally despite being researched during her lunch breaks and late nights. Auntie Beatrice reviewed it carefully, asking sharp questions, poking holes in assumptions, challenging every number. Finally, she closed the folder. "This is good work," she said. "Very good. I'll loan you the startup capital at a fair interest rate. But more than that, I'll introduce you to my business network. I'll open doors for you. What you do with those opportunities is up to you." "Auntie Beatrice, I don't know what to say. Say you'll make me proud. Say you'll show the world what a woman can do when she refuses to stay down." Within 6 months, Amara's small business was thriving. She had secured contracts to supply 3 schools with educational materials. Her children's clothing line, featuring quality imported items at affordable prices, was becoming popular among middle-class mothers in Lagos. She moved out of the boys' quarters into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Ikeja. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. She enrolled Zainab in a good private school. She could afford to buy her daughters nice clothes and healthy food. She could hold her head high. But the real transformation was internal. The broken, desperate woman who had been thrown out of the hospital was gone. In her place stood a shrewd businesswoman who negotiated hard, made strategic decisions, and refused to be intimidated by anyone. Then came the event that would change everything. Auntie Beatrice was invited to a prestigious business conference in Abuja, an annual gathering of Nigeria's top entrepreneurs and investors. The theme was Women in Business, Breaking Barriers. "I want you to come with me," Auntie Beatrice said. "It's time you started building your own network beyond Lagos." At that conference, Amara met people who would become crucial to her future. CEOs, investors, government officials. She exchanged business cards, pitched her ideas, and impressed everyone with her sharp mind and clear vision. On the second day of the conference, during a networking lunch, a distinguished-looking man in traditional attire approached her. "Excuse me, are you Amara Okonkwo?" he asked. "Yes, sir. My name is Nnamdi Obi. I'm a traditional ruler from Enugu State, and I'm also on the board of several companies. I heard your presentation this morning about creating sustainable supply chains for educational materials in rural areas. I was very impressed." They talked for over an hour. Nnamdi was nothing like the men Amara had known. He was educated, well-traveled, and passionate about developing Nigeria's education sector. He was also a widower with 2 teenage children, and when he looked at Amara, he saw not a desperate woman with baggage, but an intelligent, ambitious entrepreneur. Before the conference ended, he asked for her business contact. "I'd like to discuss a potential partnership," he said. "I'm working on a project to supply learning materials to schools across the Southeast. Your expertise could be invaluable." As Amara flew back to Lagos, she felt something stirring inside her. This was more than just a business opportunity. This was destiny knocking on her door. She had no idea that within 1 year, her life would transform so completely that even she would barely recognize herself. And Chaik. He was about to learn the most painful lesson of his life. If you believe in second chances, if you believe that your current situation doesn't define your future, hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they can rise again no matter how far they've fallen. And here's my question. Do you believe in divine timing? Do you think everything happens for a reason? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The partnership with Nnamdi Obi transformed Amara's business overnight. Within 3 months, she had secured contracts worth over 20 million naira to supply educational materials to schools across Enugu, Anambra, and Ebonyi states. Her small operation expanded rapidly. She hired 5 employees, rented a proper office space in Ikeja, and registered her company officially as Chisholm Educational Supplies Limited, named after her youngest daughter. But something else was developing alongside her business success. Nnamdi had become more than just a business partner. He called her regularly, not just to discuss contracts and logistics, but to ask about her day, her daughters, her dreams. He flew to Lagos twice a month for meetings, and somehow, those meetings always ended with dinner. "You remind me that strength and grace can exist in the same person," he told her one evening at a restaurant in Victoria Island. "My late wife was like that too. Strong but gentle. Ambitious but kind." Amara felt something she thought she would never feel again. She was falling in love. But this time, it was different. This wasn't the desperate, naive love of her youth. This was the careful, considered affection of a woman who had learned painful lessons about trust and character. "I have 2 daughters," she reminded him. "I'm divorced, even though the marriage was never officially dissolved. I come with complications." Namdi smiled. "I have 2 teenagers who need a mother's touch. I'm a traditional ruler with responsibilities that sometimes take me away from home. I also come with complications." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But Amara, I didn't survive losing my wife to play it safe with my second chance at happiness. I know what I want, and I want you." 6 months later, in a beautiful ceremony that brought together traditional royalty and modern business excellence, Amara married Namdi Obi. She became not just his wife, but Lolo Amara, a queen in the traditional sense, respected and honored in the Enugu community. The wedding was covered by newspapers and blogs. Photos of the radiant bride in her expensive George wrapper and coral beads circulated on social media. Amara's life had turned completely around, and she made sure her daughters understood the journey. "Never forget where we came from," she told Zainab and Chisholm as they settled into the palace in Enugu. "We were once homeless with nowhere to turn. Now look at us." But this didn't happen by luck. It happened because we refused to give up. As Lolo Amara, she didn't just enjoy her new status. She used it. She established a foundation to help abused and abandoned women, providing them with skills training and startup capital. She worked with her husband to improve education infrastructure in rural communities. She became a voice for women's economic empowerment, speaking at conferences and on television programs. Her business continued to grow. Within 2 years of her marriage, Chisholm Educational Supplies had expanded beyond the southeast, winning contracts in 6 states across Nigeria. Amara was now a millionaire several times over, her success built on hard work, strategic thinking, and the opportunities created by Auntie Beatrice and her husband. But throughout all of this, she had heard nothing from Chaik or his family. She had moved on so completely that she rarely thought about them anymore. Her lawyers had handled the divorce proceedings in her absence. Chaik had not contested it, probably relieved to be free of the woman he had discarded. Then came the day everything collided. Amara was in Lagos for a business meeting with potential investors at the Eco Hotel. She wore a navy blue suit, her neck adorned with the coral beads that marked her status as a Lolo. Her assistant walked beside her, carrying files and her laptop. 2 security personnel provided by her husband accompanied them, as was now standard for her public appearances. She was crossing the lobby, discussing the upcoming presentation with her assistant, when she heard a voice she had not heard in almost 5 years. "Amara." She turned slowly, her heart suddenly pounding. There, standing near the reception desk with his mouth hanging open in shock, was Chaik. But this was not the Chaik she remembered. This man looked older, worn down by life. His suit was cheap and ill-fitting. His shoes were scuffed. His face carried the marks of stress and, she noted with detached observation, excessive drinking. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Amara's security detail moved closer, sensing potential trouble. "Is everything all right, Ma?" one of them asked. "It's fine," Amara said calmly, her voice steady. She looked at Chaik with the cool assessment of a stranger examining an unremarkable object. "Hello, Chaik." Chaik seemed unable to process what he was seeing. His eyes traveled from her expensive clothing to the coral beads, to the security personnel, to the confident way she carried herself. You're here. What happened to you?" "Life happened," Amara said simply. Was there something you needed? I heard stories, but I didn't believe them. People said you remarried. That you married some ease from our state. That you're now some big businesswoman. I thought they were lying. They weren't lying. Chaik's face twisted with an emotion Amara couldn't quite identify. Regret. Anger. Jealousy. Perhaps all three. Amara, we need to talk. About what happened. About the girls. I've been thinking. The girls. Amara's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. You mean Zainab and Chisholm? The daughters you rejected? The children you allowed your mother to call useless? Those girls. I made a mistake, Chaik said, his voice breaking. My mother, she influenced me. I wasn't thinking clearly. But I'm their father. I have rights. Amara laughed, a cold sound that made Chaik flinch. Rights. You threw us out of a hospital when I had just given birth. You spread lies about me to my own family. You took everything and left me with nothing but 2 babies and the clothes on my back. Now you want to talk about rights. People in the lobby were starting to stare. A few had recognized Amara and were pulling out their phones. Please, Chaik said, and now he was actually begging. My life fell apart after you left. The business collapsed. My father disowned me. I have nothing now. But if you're doing well, surely you can help me. For the sake of what we once had. Amara stared at him for a long moment. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who would have done anything to hear him apologize, to have him want her back. That woman was dead. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Amara said quietly. Nothing. I'm going to do absolutely nothing for you. You made your choice 5 years ago when you chose your mother's cruelty over your wife and daughters. Now live with it. She turned to walk away, but Chaik grabbed her arm. Immediately, her security personnel moved forward, but Amara held up her hand to stop them. Let me tell you something, Chaik, she said, looking him directly in the eyes. The best thing that ever happened to me was you throwing me away. Because it forced me to discover who I really was. It made me strong. It made me successful. So thank you. Thank you for being exactly the weak, cruel man you turned out to be. You set me free. She pulled her arm from his grasp and walked away, her head held high. Behind her, she heard Chaik calling her name, but she didn't look back. She had a meeting to attend, a business to run, and daughters who were waiting for their mother to come home and help them with their homework. That evening, videos of the encounter began circulating on Nigerian social media. Rejected wife returns as queen, read the headlines. From hospital floor to palace halls, proclaimed another. The story went viral, inspiring thousands of women who had faced similar rejection and abuse. But for Amara, it wasn't about revenge or public vindication. It was simply about moving forward with the beautiful life she had built from the ashes of her worst moment. However, the encounter with Chaik had awakened something in Lagos. News traveled fast in elite circles, and soon, another person from Amara's past learned about her transformation. Someone who had been the architect of her suffering. Someone who was about to make a terrible mistake. Mama Chaik was coming for her. 3 weeks after the encounter with Chaik, Amara was back in Enugu, preparing for the grand opening of her foundation's new Skills Acquisition Center. The center, a beautiful 2-story building in the heart of the city, would provide free training in various trades for disadvantaged women. It was Amara's way of giving back, of being for others what Auntie Beatrice had been for her. The opening ceremony was scheduled for Saturday morning, and several dignitaries had confirmed their attendance, including the state governor, traditional rulers from across the southeast, and prominent business leaders. Local television stations would cover the event. It was a big moment for Amara's foundation. Friday evening, as she reviewed the program schedule in her home office at the palace, her phone rang. It was Sister Grace, the nurse who had saved her life 5 years ago and who now worked as a program coordinator for her foundation. Amara, we have a problem, Sister Grace said urgently. Mama Chaik is here in Enugu. She's been going around to different community leaders, spreading stories about you. She's telling people that you're a runaway wife, that you abandoned your marriage and stole from their family. She's even claiming that Ease Namdi married you under false pretenses because you didn't tell him about your past. Amara felt a cold anger settle in her chest. Where is she now? She's staying with her cousin in Trans Ekalu. Word is that she plans to show up at tomorrow's event to cause a scene and embarrass you publicly. Let her come, Amara said calmly. I've been silent long enough. It's time the truth came out. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She sat in her bedroom, watching her daughters sleep peacefully in the adjoining room. Zainab was now 8 years old, excelling in school and showing a talent for mathematics. Chisholm, at 5, was a bundle of energy and curiosity, always asking questions about everything. They had no memory of those dark days in Lagos. They knew their mother had once been married to someone else, but that was all. They called Ease Namdi Papa, and his children were their beloved older siblings. They lived in comfort and security, never knowing hunger or rejection. Amara had built this life carefully, protecting her daughters from the pain of their beginning. But tomorrow, that protection might be tested. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. By 9 o'clock, the new center's compound was filled with guests. White plastic chairs arranged in neat rows faced a small stage decorated with purple and gold fabrics, the colors of Amara's foundation. A large banner proclaimed, "Lifting Women, Building Communities." Amara stood backstage in a stunning purple lace outfit, her coral beads gleaming. Ease Namdi stood beside her, handsome in his traditional chieftain attire. "Are you ready?" he asked, squeezing her hand. "I am," she replied. The program began smoothly. The governor gave an opening speech praising Amara's vision and commitment. Several community leaders spoke. Then it was time for Amara to address the crowd. She was halfway through her speech, talking about the importance of economic empowerment for women, when the disruption came. Liar. Thief. Husband snatcher. The crowd turned in shock as Mama Chaik pushed her way through the seated guests, her face twisted with rage. She was flanked by 2 of Chaik's relatives, and they marched toward the stage with determination. Security personnel moved to intercept them, but Amara held up her hand. "Let her speak," Amara said into the microphone, her voice steady. "Let everyone hear what she has to say." Mama Chaik reached the front of the stage, breathing heavily. "You think you can parade yourself as some respectable woman? Some queen?" She spat the word with contempt. "This woman abandoned her husband. She ran away from her marriage and stole money from my son. Now she has tricked another man into marrying her." The crowd murmured with confusion and shock. Cameras were rolling. This was exactly the kind of drama that would dominate social media for weeks. Amara looked down at Mama Chaik with an expression of complete calm. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. "Thank you," Amara said. "Thank you for coming here today. Because for 5 years, I have carried my pain in silence. I have rebuilt my life without speaking publicly about what your family did to me. But since you have brought this matter to this public forum, let me tell these good people the truth." She turned to address the crowd, and her voice rang out clear and strong. 5 years ago, I gave birth to my second daughter in a Lagos hospital. While I lay on that hospital bed, weak from 18 hours of labor, this woman, she pointed at Mama Chaik, took my newborn baby from the nurse and declared her worthless because she was a girl. Her son, my husband at the time, stood there and said nothing as his family threw me out of the hospital with my 2 baby girls and nowhere to go. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The governor leaned forward in his seat, his face grave. I had no money, no phone, no way to contact my family. They dumped my belongings at the hospital gate and told me I was no longer part of their family because I had failed to give them sons. I was homeless with a newborn and a 3-year-old child. If not for the kindness of a nurse who took us in, my daughters and I might have died on the streets of Lagos. Mama Chaik tried to interrupt, but Amara's voice rose, commanding attention. "You want to talk about theft? Your son and his family took my dignity, my security, my peace of mind. They took everything I had and threw me away like garbage. But I didn't die. I didn't give up. I worked in a warehouse, lifting boxes until my hands bled. I rebuilt my life from nothing. Every naira I have today, I earned through my sweat and tears. I stole nothing from anyone. She turned her gaze back to Mama Chaik, and her voice dropped but carried clearly through the microphone. You rejected my daughters because they were girls. You called them useless and worthless. But look at them now. She gestured to where Zainab and Chisholm sat with their stepfather's children, all of them watching with wide eyes. They are beautiful, brilliant, and loved. They will grow up to be strong women who will achieve great things. And they will do it without knowing the poison of your hatred. My son made a mistake. Mama Chaik shouted, but her voice sounded weak now. He wants his children back. You have no right to keep them from their father. Their father. Amara's laugh was bitter. He had 18 hours to be their father while I was in labor. He had the moment of their births to be their father. He had every day since then to be their father. Instead, he chose to be your puppet. He chose cruelty over compassion. He doesn't get to be their father now that my life has improved. Ease Namdi stood and walked to the stage, standing beside his wife in a show of solidarity that spoke volumes. Let me be very clear, he said, his voice carrying the authority of his position. I knew everything about my wife's past before I married her. She told me the whole story. I didn't marry her under false pretenses. I married her because I saw a woman of extraordinary strength, character, and resilience. A woman who turned tragedy into triumph. A woman who uses her success to lift others up. He looked directly at Mama Chaik. You come here to shame her, but you have only shamed yourself. You reveal your own cruelty and small-mindedness. My wife has nothing to be ashamed of. But you. You should be ashamed of what you did to a helpless woman and her newborn children. The crowd erupted in applause. Several women stood up, and soon everyone was on their feet, clapping and cheering for Amara. Mama Chaik looked around wildly, realizing she had lost. The cameras had captured everything. Her attempt to humiliate Amara had backfired spectacularly. She had exposed her own wickedness in front of the entire community. Security personnel finally escorted her and her relatives out of the compound. As they left, Mama Chaik was crying, shouting curses and threats that no one listened to anymore. Amara stood on that stage, surrounded by applause, and felt something break open inside her. It wasn't triumph or revenge that she felt. It was freedom. The final chain connecting her to that painful past had been severed. She was truly free now. The ceremony continued, and the Skills Acquisition Center was officially opened. Women from across the state toured the facilities, registered for programs, and shared their own stories of struggle and survival. Amara moved among them, listening, encouraging, and knowing that her pain had not been wasted. It had become the foundation for something beautiful. That evening, as news of the confrontation spread across social media and television, Amara received hundreds of messages from women thanking her for speaking her truth. Many shared their own stories of rejection by in-laws, of abuse and abandonment, of fighting their way back to dignity. But there was one more twist to come, one final encounter that would close this chapter of her life forever. 2 months after the confrontation at the center's opening, Amara's life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Her foundation was thriving, with over 200 women enrolled in various training programs. Her business continued to expand, and she had just signed a major contract to supply educational materials to schools across 3 additional states. Her marriage to Ease Namdi grew stronger each day, built on mutual respect, love, and shared values. The viral videos from the ceremony had made Amara something of a celebrity. She was invited to speak at women's conferences across Nigeria and even in Ghana and Kenya. Her story inspired countless women who had faced similar situations. Several organizations reached out to partner with her foundation. Even Auntie Beatrice, who had watched Amara's rise with the pride of a mother, told her that she had exceeded every expectation. "You didn't just survive," Auntie Beatrice said during one of their regular phone calls. "You became a force of nature." But Amara knew that one piece of unfinished business remained. Her own family in Enugu, the parents who had believed Chike's lies and turned their backs on her, had not reached out. The viral videos had surely reached them, but her phone remained silent. Until one Sunday afternoon in December, Amara was in the palace gardens, watching Zainab and Chisholm play with their stepbrother and stepsister, when the gateman called to inform her that she had visitors. Her parents had come. Her first instinct was to refuse to see them. The wounds they had inflicted were deep. But then she looked at her daughters, laughing and carefree, and she thought about the importance of breaking cycles of pain. She thought about forgiveness, not for others, but for her own peace. "Let them in," she said. Her parents looked older than she remembered. Her father's hair had turned completely grey, and her mother walked with a slight stoop. They stood at the entrance to the gardens, looking small and uncertain, so different from the people who had once held absolute authority over her life. "Amara," her father said, his voice rough with emotion. "Papa. Mama." Her voice was neutral, giving nothing away. Her mother began to cry immediately. "My daughter, we have wronged you. We have sinned against you and against God. We believed lies about you. We abandoned you when you needed us most." "We saw the videos," her father added, his proud shoulders sagging with shame. "We saw what that family did to you. We saw how you suffered and how you rose. And we were not there for any of it." Amara said nothing for a long moment. She let them stand in their discomfort because they needed to feel it, to understand the weight of their choices. "When you turned me away, I was homeless with 2 babies, Amara said finally. "I called you from a stranger's phone, begging for help, and you chose to believe a man you barely knew over your own daughter. Do you know what that did to me?" "We know," her mother sobbed. "We know, and we have not had peace since then. Every day we wondered where you were, if you were even alive. We tried to find you, but you had disappeared. We thought you might be dead." "I was dead," Amara said quietly. "The daughter you knew died that day. I had to become someone new to survive." Her father fell to his knees, something she had never seen him do in her entire life. "Please forgive us, Amara. We don't deserve it, but we are begging. We have brought shame to ourselves. The whole village knows what we did. They call us the parents who abandoned their child. We cannot even hold our heads up anymore." Amara looked at them, these 2 people who had given her life and education but had failed her when she needed them most. She thought about holding on to her anger, letting them suffer as she had suffered. It would be justified. It would be fair. But then she thought about Zainab and Chisholm, who deserved to know their grandparents. She thought about the bitterness that had consumed Mama Chike, turning her into a cruel and miserable woman. She thought about the kind of person she wanted to be, the kind of legacy she wanted to leave. "Stand up, Papa," she said softly. Her father stood, tears streaming down his weathered face. "What you did hurt me deeply," Amara continued. "It hurt in ways I'm not sure you can fully understand. But I have learned something in these past 5 years. Holding on to pain and anger only gives power to the people who hurt you. I refuse to give any more power to my past." She took a deep breath. "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. But understand this. Forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. You missed 5 years of your granddaughters' lives. You weren't there for their first steps, their first words, their birthdays, their achievements. That time is gone forever." "We know," her mother whispered. "But," Amara continued, and she saw hope flicker in their eyes, "if you are willing to be the grandparents my daughters deserve from this day forward, then there is a place for you in our lives. Not the place you once had, but a new place. A place you will have to earn through your actions, not your words." Her father nodded vigorously. "We will do anything. We will be whatever you need us to be." Amara called to her daughters. "Zainab, Chisholm, come here. I want you to meet your grandparents." The two girls ran over, curious and excited. They had heard stories about their maternal grandparents but had never met them. "This is your Papa Okonkwo and your Mama Okonkwo," Amara said, her hand resting protectively on each daughter's shoulder. "They live in Enugu, and they've come to visit you." Her mother fell to her knees, gathering both girls into her arms and weeping. Her father stood watching, his face a mixture of joy and regret as he looked at these beautiful grandchildren he had rejected before they were even born. Later that evening, after her parents had left with promises to visit regularly and invitations to bring the girls to their home, Nnamdi found Amara sitting alone in their bedroom. "That was a generous thing you did today," he said, sitting beside her. "Was it generosity or weakness?" Amara asked. "Sometimes I'm not sure." "It was strength," he replied firmly. "Weak people hold grudges because they're afraid of being hurt again. Strong people forgive because they know their peace doesn't depend on others' punishment." Amara leaned against her husband, feeling grateful for his wisdom and support. "You know what the strangest part of this whole journey is," she said. "I actually am grateful to Chaik and his family. If they hadn't thrown me away, I would still be that small, scared woman living in the shadow of cruel people. I would never have discovered what I was capable of." "Do you ever wonder what happened to Chaik?" Nnamdi asked. "I heard from someone that he's working as a sales agent for a small import company in Lagos, living in a one-room apartment. His mother still controls his life, still blaming everyone else for his failures." Amara shook her head. "I don't wish him ill, but I don't feel sorry for him either. He made his choices. And you made yours," Nnamdi said. "You chose resilience over bitterness. You chose to build rather than destroy. That's why you're a queen, Amara. Not because you married me, but because of who you are." 3 years later, Amara stood on another stage, but this time it was in Abuja at the presidential villa. She was receiving the national honor of Member of the Order of the Federal Republic for her contributions to women's empowerment and education development. Her foundation had expanded to 12 states, helping over 5,000 women start businesses and gain economic independence. Zainab, now 11, stood in the audience with her sister Chisholm, both wearing matching Ankara dresses, their faces glowing with pride as they watched their mother accept the honor from the President of Nigeria. Also in the audience were Nnamdi, Auntie Beatrice, Sister Grace, her parents, and hundreds of women whose lives Amara had touched. The crowd gave her a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. As Amara held the medal and looked out at all those faces, she thought about that terrible night at the hospital gate 5 years ago. She thought about the woman she had been, broken and desperate with nowhere to turn. If she could go back and tell that woman anything, it would be this: your pain has a purpose. Your suffering is not the end. Hold on, because something beautiful is coming. That night, as she tucked her daughters into bed, Zainab asked her a question. "Mama, in school they were talking about you. They said you used to be poor and homeless. Is that true?" Amara looked at her daughters' innocent faces and decided they were old enough for the truth. "Yes, my darling. It's true. When you were very little, we had nothing. We were thrown away by people who should have loved us. But we survived. And we didn't just survive, we thrived. Do you know why?" "Why, Mama?" Chisholm asked. "Because we refused to let other people's cruelty define us. Because we chose to be strong even when we wanted to give up. And because we always remembered that our worth doesn't come from what others think of us. It comes from who we are inside. Are we strong too, Mama?" Zainab asked. Amara kissed both her daughters on their foreheads. "You are the strongest girls I know. You carry the blood of warriors. Never forget that." As she left their room and stood in the hallway of her beautiful home, Amara whispered a prayer of thanksgiving. She had been kicked out during labor for having girls. She had been rejected, humiliated, and left with nothing. But she had returned as a queen. Not just in title, but in spirit, in strength, and in the legacy she was building for every woman who had ever been told she wasn't enough. The circle was complete. The story that began with tears in a hospital corridor had ended with triumph in a palace. And somewhere in Lagos, in a small one-room apartment, a man named Chike probably saw the news coverage and finally understood the magnitude of what he had thrown away. But that was his burden to carry, not hers. Amara had moved on to bigger and better things. And she was just getting started. We've reached the end of Amara's incredible journey, but I hope her story stays with you. If this story inspired you, if it made you believe that you can rise from any situation, then do 3 things for me right now. First, smash that subscribe button because we have more powerful stories coming your way. Second, hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are stronger than their circumstances. And third, drop a comment telling me what lesson you're taking away from Amara's story. Remember, your current situation is not your final destination. Just like Amara, you too can rise. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.